Here we are on the front porch again. My dad and I had been sitting on the front porch swing. It was summertime. He had cancer and he was dying with cancer. And I guess he was trying to give me a little bit of direction. I was 14 years old. And he asked me, he said, "What do you want to do for a living when you grow up, Doug?" And I said, "I want to be a machinist like you." He said, "Charlie's going to be a machinist as soon as they open up an apprenticeship for him. And I want to do the same thing." Dad said, "How good a machinist you want to be?" I said, "I want to be the best machinist in Maryland." He said, "Well, that's all right." He said, "But you ought to want more than that. That's not enough." "What do you mean?" I said. He said, "Well, you ought to want to be the you ought to want to be the best machinist this side of the Mississippi, and the other side too if you can." I said, "Wow." That's a big calling. Well, anyway, Dad passed away that fall, Thanksgiving, and man, I was hurt. He was my best friend. He really was. Him and I fished together. We did all kinds of. We went to the library together. We went to Washington to the Smithsonian Museum, and we went to the patent office, and wherever he went, most of the time I went with him. And we had a lot of fun. We took my canoe and up to Pretty Boy Dam and went fishing up there and caught a canoe load of fish. And so that's the kind of stuff we did. And when we did, we sat and talked. There was always a lot of conversation going on. Dad was a great talker, and he had a lot of ideas. And of course, being a boy, there was a hell of a lot I didn't know, so I learned a lot. Well, I was thinking about this morning, I was thinking about a good friend of mine, Joe. And that's as much of his name as I want to repeat. But anyway, Joe was a smart boy. He was a big fella. His daddy was a big, tall fella, bad alcoholic. And Joe was pretty wild. And so was the rest of us. But Joe was a leader. And he was the one that had all the good ideas. Like, walked by Oller's garage one day and he had a 1936 Packard sitting in the yard. They wanted $35 for it. And Joe come back over to the restaurant where we were all sitting, shooting a matchbook back and forth across one of the booth tables, playing football, we called it. And he said, "Hey," he said, "I got a Packard over $1 over there. We can all pitch in $5 a piece and buy it." And so okay, everybody had a little money. We all worked, and everybody had a little money, so everybody pitched in $5, and he went over and bought Packard. Well, he was the only one that could put it in his name because he had just turned 16, and so without bothering to put any tags on it, we took off and went running. No, we put a set of tags off another old car there on it. Yeah, and we went riding all over town, all over Dundalk with it. But the bearings was rattling in it, and she was knocking, and she was throwing oil, and blowing smoke stunk to high heaven. And so we drove it all around the place. And one Saturday night, we went down the Dundalk Bathing Beach Road, Snake Hole, which was a sand road, and that had kind of cut down into the ground from the tires throwing sand up all over the place, and so it was kind of down in the gully like a little bit, and so we went running down the road, sliding sideways, and bang, we hit up against the side of the daggone thing, going with two wheels, and over she went. She rolled out across the field. There was about 6 or 8 of us in the car. We all rattled around inside the car. Couldn't get hurt too much because there was too many people in there for you to go hit anything very hard. And so anyway, we thought that was great fun. We rolled her back up on the wheels and we did it again. and we did it a third time. Finally, all the oil run out of the engine, and we just walked off and left it. Well, I don't know whatever happened to it. I guess somebody come towed it away or something. But anyway, that was a lot of the kind of thing we did. There was a restaurant owned by an old Greek couple who had the best looking daughter you ever saw. Oh man, she's beautiful, black hair, dark eyes, dark skin, gorgeous. But they guarded her. Let me tell you what, she was betrothed to somebody in Greece. And they guarded her. Man, you couldn't even get close to her. As a matter of fact, if they caught her talking to you very much, they'd run her back in the kitchen and made her peel potatoes or something. Anyway, but you know, Joe grew up to be a smart man. My mother said he was the smartest boy out of the whole bunch of us. But anyway, he grew up to be a smart man. I got bored with the job I had working with SKF Bearing Company doing building research and development machinery for the business, and I got tired of it. It was kind of got to be the same thing over and over, and I got tired of it. And so I was talking to Joe one night. He said, "Why don't you come sell encyclopedias with me, door to door?" So I quit. Next week, I went with him, and we went into an apartment. This couple, the girl was pregnant, first child, and I think they were probably poor as dirt. But anyway, they were in a little one bedroom apartment. We went in and sat down, and I was amazed. He was the best daggone salesman I ever heard. He was absolutely fantastic. And I knew right then I was never going to be able to sell encyclopedias because that just wasn't my shtick. There wasn't no two ways about it. Anyway, Joe went on, got himself a good education, became the manager of a good-sized corporation, did really well for himself. And I went on down to Richmond, went to work there, 2 or 3 different places. I'd work a year and decide I'd had enough of that. Go somewhere else, learn something else, go somewhere else, learn something else. Went to Philip Morris, decided I didn't want to work for a big company because they wanted to tell me how to do my work, and I didn't want to be bothered with somebody telling me how I ought to be doing something. I had my own ideas about that. So I left there. Run into a guy that was building swimming pools, and he needed mosquito sprayers to spray into the air around the pools to keep the mosquitoes away. They mounted them up on the lights on the poles where the lights were around the pools. So I made the spray nozzles for him. I bought a little South Bend lathe, ordered it, and a great big fella black fella, delivered it to the house. Thing weighed, I don't know, probably 400 pounds or something. Damn if he didn't pick that thing up and walk down through the yard, down 3 steps on the sidewalk, up 4 steps to my utility room, where I had built a workbench to put the lathe, and I had built a box on the back so the drive unit could stick out into the box. And I got started making nozzles. Well, I got some other little jobs too. And I bought a drill press and put over in one corner. And I had a tall seat to sit on. And I made spray nozzles and a few other little things. Georgine D. Bird had been polished them a little bit for me. And was doing pretty good. And I got some other contracts, but I didn't have room enough. The place wasn't big enough. It was a little narrow shed. And so I needed a bigger place. Well, I went looking for a place, and I found one in Richmond, and I rented it for a small amount of money. It wasn't a real big place. Now I started buying machinery, and I bought another lathe, and I bought a milling machine, and I bought a bandsaw and a cut-off saw, and a couple drill presses, and then I was trying to run it all. Well, I had my nephews coming over and working, and we were pretty busy. My brother come along one day, and he said, "Hey," He said, I just quit down there at Flight Research. He said, how about if I come up here and starve to death with you? I said, bring it on, buddy. I need some help because this place is just about more than I can handle by myself now. So we did that. Went along pretty good, about 7 or 8 years. And we had to move into a great big building. Cost us about 10 times more than I was paying. And we got really busy. Bought a great big grinder. We made parts for American Machine and Foundry, AMF. Bread slicing machines and industrial sewing machines and that kind of stuff. Well, I never knew when I was making money. I mean, I was no businessman. I was a machinist. I knew how to do any kind of machine. I could make anything. But I didn't know nothing about business. And so anyhow, we went bust. And the government said they was going to bus all the kids down to Chaco Valley in Richmond, which was the bottom of the world. There was a lot of black people down there, and that's why they wanted to bus my kids down there. And they were killing each other, shooting each other, stabbing each other, and girls being raped, all kinds of things going on. I said, my kids ain't going down there to go to school. They just ain't doing it. So I had a sailboat in Deltaville. We were sailing down there. So I just gathered up my family, sold our house, and we moved to Deltaville. Well, my kids went to school with black kids down there too. But they were a nice bunch of kids. I went to work at Mars Machine Works. Pappy Grow, who was an old barnstormer, and his son Bob and David was running the place, and Malvin Rowe was an owner. And I went to work there, and the first day I met Pappy for the first time. He was in there working, and he walked over and he said, so you're the guy that knows so much about machine work. Well, I had played myself up pretty big. So anyway, and I said, yeah, I'm he. And they gave me a job to do, a bunch of little tiny parts for some instrument work. And instruments for NASA. And so I started making them. And after a couple of days, he come back, he said, you look like you've done that before. I said, yeah, well, I've done just about all kind of work you can think of one way or another over time. He said. The boy's dad, Pappy Grow, was kind of a bull of the woods. I liked him, really. Pappy, as I said, had been a barnstormer. And the boy's mother, Jo, said that he used to put the two boys in the cockpit of the airplane with him and fly to the airport wherever they were going to put on an air show or race, whatever they were going to do. And the baby girl would ride in the car with her and she'd drive to the airport. Well, I don't know, but I don't remember what kind of airplane he was flying, but I'll bet you any amount of money it was probably a little two-seated biplane, racing biplane. I used to know the names of some of them, but I can't remember what they were right now. Anyway, so I liked Pappy. And I think he probably kind of liked me a little bit too. He was kind of complimentary a couple times. Well, one day Pappy brought to the shop, him and Jack, a fellow who had taught the Argentine Air Force how to make best use of a fighter plane. They brought Pappy Boyington to the shop. They both knew him. Pappy was pretty bad drunk, so they would once in a while fly out to California and sober him up, maybe get him out of jail if they had to. And well, this time he was very interested to see what NASA was doing. So they brought him back to Virginia. And he went to NASA and they showed him the wind tunnels and all that they were doing for space, and he met a few astronauts and all that. Everybody was very impressed to see him and meet him. And they brought him by the shop. Pappy showed him all around, and Bob and David were quite excited to meet him, and so was I. And I was really excited. Anyway, I got to talk to him for a little while, and but it wasn't long before they had to go catch an airplane to fly back to California, and so that was interesting. That was a thrill for me. Illegally running the Atlantic Ocean, when we got the blades done, they were put in or in Spain. Well, I had a good time there. The president of the company, Bob, was a pilot like his father, and David, his younger brother, who ran the office, and his wife, who was secretary, cute girl, teenager when she first come in there, and so they made me shop foreman, which was the worst mistake anybody ever made, because it really wasn't something that I was interested in. I was interested in doing machine work. I wasn't interested in the other people that worked there or any of that stuff. But anyway, that was what I did, and it was probably, and I wasn't good at it. It was, I think everybody was satisfied. But one of the problems I had was that I don't care nothing about money. They were pretty money oriented. They were pretty busy wanting to make money, but I didn't really care anything about money. They bought me a motorcycle. I liked that money. And I, and paid me more money to run the shop and all that. But as far as running a business, I didn't have any interest. I'd been there once and done that, and I failed at it, and I really didn't want to do that all over again. So anyway, we did that for a while, and the turbine work was slowing down. We had a good welder in the welding shop, Rick, his name was, and he was a fantastically good welder. And he was running out of work, and so I told Bob and David, I said, well, I'll tell you what, let's build a sailboat. And they said, well, see what you can find out about it. So I talked to Phil Bolger up in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and told him what I would like in a sailboat. And he came back with a design that was different than what I thought I wanted, but anyway, it was a good design, I thought. It was shallow draft with a great big centerboard and a full-length keel about 12 inches deep, full length of the boat. So with the idea in mind that you could sail her out in the bay or out in the ocean anywhere you want to, and if you wanted to sneak up into a really shallow creek where you couldn't put the board down, you could pull the board up and sail to windward and make some headway up into a creek to anchor for the night, or to fish, or whatever you wanted to do. Maybe you might want to just lay up there and watch the eagles. But so we built the boat, tried to sell it, couldn't sell it. David used it some, and Bob and I used it, and so it wound up being my boat. So and it was worth a lot of money, and it was darn nice of the guys to give it to me. And but anyway, time went by. We wound up selling the shop. Bob had other things he wanted to do. We had rebuilt some airplanes in there, rebuilt a couple for David, and a couple for Bob, and that was all interesting stuff to me too, because I built model airplanes as a kid, and I thought they were really cool, so I enjoyed that building of airplanes in the shop there. But we sold the place. Well, we all kind of went our separate ways. Georgina and I went off sailing, went down the coast to Fort Lauderdale, over to Bahamas, back to the Florida Keys, Key West, spent a lot of years down there messing around. Bob had married Irene, and they lived on a big sailboat that he had bought and fixed up. And David and Linda had bought Pappy Grove's house after he passed away. And then David went over and took care of, was caretaker in Little England, which was a great deal for him because he had a nice big shed there where he could, when he wasn't working mowing grass and stuff, he could rebuild airplanes. So he had a fairly steady stream of airplanes. He'd build them a while and fly them a while and sell them, build another, fly them a while and sell it. And so that's kind of where their life went. The people that owned the place finally sold it. And so they wound up, they bought a little house, fixed it up, added to it, and moved into it. And he's still building airplanes and flies. Matter of fact, he's got one he's flying right now. Okay, well, this is Doug here saying goodbye, and probably I'll pick up with where I went anyway, with the boat, probably with pictures and video and all of that, on another bit of On the Front Porch. Okay, bye-bye all.